Greetings, fellow lords and ladies. World I Look at Game of Thrones Season 5 now continues on with Sons of the Harpy. Beginning at King's Landing, at a small council meeting, Master of Coin Mace Tyrell brings bad news that the Iron Bank of Bravos is starting to call in its debts from Westeros. They've started by calling in a tenth of the Iron Throne's current debts to the bank, which it can only afford half of, as rebuilding the royal fleet was also a massive expense. Maester offers House Tyrell could front the money for the time being, but Cersei clearly does not want to give the Tyrells more power over the crown. Instead, she says that they will send Mace himself to Bravos to negotiate for more time, because sending such a high-ranking official will show the bank how seriously they take their large debts. Mace is oblivious that this is also Cersei's way of removing him from the capital, and takes it as a high honor, as well as that Cersei will send Sir Meryn Trent to the King's Guard along to guard him. After he leaves, Pycelle bitterly points out that the small council is growing even smaller. The only three members left at the capital are Pycelle, Cersei, and her lackey Qyburn. But she says it hasn't quite grown small enough yet. Cersei then meets with the High Sparrow, who, by her influence, has been elected as the new High Septon of the Faith of the Seven. Cersei is trying to build up a new alliance between the Crown and the Faith, as a counterweight to the large political influence the Tyrells now possess. Cersei points out to the High Sparrow that the War of the Five Kings has devastated much of the countryside, resulting in septs being burned, clergymen attacked, and even silent sisters raped. Bodies of holy men are piling up in the streets. The High Sparrow admits that wars make men obey the sword more than the gods. Cersei points out that before the Targaryens, the military order known as the Faith Militant dispensed the justice of the Seven. The High Septon is confused, as the Targaryens disbanded the Faith Militant over 2 centuries ago. Cersei explains that, as part of the new alliance she hopes to build between the Crown and the Faith, she will tell her son to repeal the law and allow the Faith Militant to be re-established and rearmed. An army whose purpose is to defend the Faith, holy men, and the small folk, which will incidentally be turned against the Crown's enemies. She advises him that there is a greater sinner in their midst who has been shielded by golden power. The High Sparrow replies with a wish for the Father to judge him justly. The new Faith Militant storms the streets of King's Landing, attacking taverns, brothels, and street vendors selling idols from other religions. The City Watch look on, helpless, and do not intervene. They ransack Littlefinger's brothel, dragging prostitutes like Marie out into the street by their hair. Oliver is struck and ignored as they barge in. Oliver hears screams coming from another room, which he approaches to see the Sparrows having a single male client having sex with one of the male prostitutes. The Sparrows had assaulted the customer and prostitute with knives and hurled homophobic slurs against them. One Sparrow approaches one of the men with a knife. Oliver flees as one of the men screams off screen. As a sign of their zealotry, the Faith Militant have the 7-pointed star symbol of the Faith carved into their foreheads, including Lancel, who leads a squad of the Faith Militant to apprehend Loras Tyrell while he was sparring in the practice yard. Lancel proclaims that Loras' sexual perversions are sins against the laws of gods and men, and Loras is dragged off. Marjorie Tyrell is furious at Tommen for her brother's arrest, and tries to manipulate him by weeping at how hurt she is that he let this happen to Loras. Tommen goes to his mother and, briefly standing up to her, demands that Loras be released at once. Cersei calmly points out that she didn't arrest Loras. The Faith Militant simply dragged him up and imprisoned him, so he should ask the High Sparrow to release him. Tommen naively thinks the High Sparrow will simply do as he requests, so he heads to the Great Sept of Baelor with 5 Kingsguard and several Lannister guards. The path to the Great Sept is blocked by the Faith Militant, who say that the High Sparrow is praying and does not wish to be disturbed. The Kingsguard request that Tommen let them kill the Faith Militant to pass. Tommen is surprised at this and does not want to risk bloodshed escalating matters, particularly shedding blood on holy ground. As he hesitates, the mob of commoners behind him starts shouting that he is really a bastard and an abomination of incest. Realizing this is not going to end well, Tommen meekly withdraws back to the Red Keep. Marjorie is even more upset at how ineffectual young Tommen was, so she leaves saying that she is going to bring her grandmother Lena back to the capital to deal with this. Okay then. Anyway, in Dorne, Jaime Lannister and Sir Bronn are on a Pentoshi merchant ship, which is headed to Old Town in the Reach. The sail past Tarth, off the coast of the Stormlands, which Jaime mistakenly identifies as Estermont. The captain corrects him, saying they are sailing past the Sapphire Isles, which reminds him of Brienne. Jaime explains to Bronn that he bribed the captain to let them take a small boat to shore as they pass Doran. They land just aside of Sunspear and the adjacent water gardens. Below decks, Bronn remarks on why Jaime must want to go and protect Princess Marcella for himself. He used to want to let Tyrion escape, in hopes that this will make up for that. Jaime curious as the Varys did, when in fact, Jaime first Varys helped him free Tyrion. Bronn says that if Jaime ever sees Tyrion again, Jaime should give him his regards. Jaime angrily says that if he sees his brother again, he's going to split him in two for murdering their father Tywin. Bronn rows to shore a pair at dusk, though Jaime can't help row with his one hand. When they wake the next morning, Bronn kills a snake that was near Jaime's head and roasts it up for breakfast. Bronn is worried that the ship's captain will subsequently spread the word that a Lannister is in Dorne. Jaime says he bribed him with a large bag of gold, but Bronn still worries. A mounted patrol soon comes by, however, and sees their tracks in the sand. Jaime and Bronn present themselves and try to pass off the simple travelers and their boat capsized in the night, but the ruse doesn't work, and the sentries demand that they drop their weapons so they can be taken prisoner and their identities confirmed. Bronn plants his sword in the sand. Then quickly throws his dagger in the lead sentry's throat. Jaime and Bronn draw their swords and fight the rest. Jaime can't fight very well left-handed, so Bronn kills one sentry's horse in order for Jaime to fight him on foot. Jaime's being overpowered but catches the sentry's sword with his metal hand at the last moment, and then uses the distraction to land a killing blow to the sentry with his left hand. Bronn, having finished off the other sentries, notes that they now have their horses, fine Dornish sand steeds, capable of running a day and night without tiring. Jaime says the bodies need to be buried so they won't raise more questions. Bronn says it will take a lot of time to dig holes for them all, though Jaime again points out that he can't really do much digging with one hand. Annoyed, Bronn then drags off the bodies to bury. Meanwhile, elsewhere outside of Sunspear, Ellaria Sand meets with 3 of the 8 sand snakes, Oberyn Martell's bastard daughters. Abara Sand, the eldest, is the daughter of a peasant. Nymeria Sand, commonly called Nym, is the daughter of an Eastern noblewoman. The youngest of 3, Tyene Sand, is Ellaria's own daughter. She informs that the Prince Doran Martell will not raise Doran's armies to avenge his brother's death. They worry that they have no army to march against the Lannisters, but Ellaria tells them that they don't need one. To start a war, all they need to do is kill Cersei's daughter Marcella, currently in Doran's possession. Abara then points out that they may have a problem. The Benotti ship captain found her in Plankytown, and as Bronn feared, Indeed tried to sell her information about Jaime Lannister's arrival in Dorne. The Sand Snakes, however, were insulted that he wanted to be paid for such vital information instead of offering it freely. So they took a prisoner and tortured it out of him. Nymeria uses her whip to knock a bucket over. The turn of her bucket reveals that they buried the ship's captain neck deep in the sand, and his head had been under a bucket full of venomous scorpions. The rest of them are in a race against time to see who could take Marcella from Dorne first, Jaime Lannister or themselves. Ellaria asks if the 3 girls are with her, knowing this will bring Dorne into war. Nymeria and Tyene say yes. Abara knows that when she first met Oberyn, he was the man with whom she had never met who one day appeared, said he was her father, and that he was taking her away from her mother. Her mother wept, but Oberyn said, "We will choose our battles, and the gods let us choose our weapons." He threw his spear at her feet, pointed to her mother's tears, then to his spear, and told her to choose. She chose the spear, and answers Ellaria that she is with her, as she chose the path of the spear in war long ago. She then throws her spear to impale the ship captain's head. Ooh. Anyway, on the summer sea, at Volantis, during the night, Jorah Mormont knocks out a fisherman and steals his boat, leaving his captive Tyrion Lannister. Later, when they are at sea, Tyrion urges for Jorah to remove his gag. Jorah will not volunteer any information about himself, but on few observations, such as the bear sigil on his armor, Tyrion quickly surmises that he must be Jorah Mormont. He admits to Tyrion that the queen he is taking him to is not Cersei, but Daenerys. Tyrion recalls from small council meetings that Jorah was spying on Daenerys for Varys. Given that he's half the world away from Daenerys, he also accurately deduces that she must have found out he was spying on her and had him exiled, and therefore he kidnapped Tyrion in the hope that presenting him as a gift to Daenerys will get him back in her favor. Tyrion laughs aloud at this situation, informing Jorah that he was already heading to meet Daenerys, so this is a waste of a kidnapping. Tyrion also points out that there's no guarantee this will assuage Daenerys, and it's just as likely she will remain angry at Jorah and welcome himself as an ally. Jorah smacks Tyrion across the face, quieting him down. Oof. Anyway, at the Wall, Jon Snow trains recruits in the practice yard of Castle Black, as Stannis Baratheon and his wife Selyse watch, along with their daughter Shireen. Selyse is worried that Stannis wishes Jon was his son, because she gave him only stillbirths and weakness, but he says that wasn't her fault. Melisandre joins them and appears to quite firmly take Stannis' side, declaring that the Lord of Light doesn't care about Shireen's grayscale disfigurement, and this doesn't change the fact that she has her father's blood. When Selyse departs, Melisandre discusses the coming battle to take Winterfell from the Boltons. She asks if Stannis intends to leave her behind as he did at the Blackwater, but Stannis assures her he won't this time. As the new Lord Commander, Jon goes over paperwork of Samwell Tarly, letters they have received from minor houses offering up a handful of new recruits. Jon boxes Samwell hands him a request letter for Roose Bolton, saying he killed his brother Robb. Sam points out that Roose Bolton is now warden of the North, and he has the most recruits to send them, much more than the pittances offered by the other minor houses Jon has never heard of. He reminds Jon that the Night's Watch has sworn an oath of political neutrality, but disgust, Jon reluctantly signs the letter to the Boltons. As Sam departs, Melisandre enters. She treats him to assist Stannis in retaking Winterfell, pointing out that even if he doesn't become a Stark, his marriage with the castle could win them the battle. She also acknowledges that there is a great reward at stake, and asks Jon if he is on the side of life or death, undoing her dress and straddling him as she does so. Ooh. She encourages Jon Snow to take her, as the Lord of Light made humans male and female for a reason. Although clearly tempted, Jon refuses, citing his vows, and the fact that Stannis wouldn't approve, to which Melisandre suggests they not tell him. Melisandre points out that he broke his vows once before. Jon acknowledges that he still loves his now-deceased lover Ygritte. Aww. Melisandre adjusts her dress and leaves, but not for uttering the words Ygritte had always told Jon. You know nothing, Jon Snow. Hold on just a sec. I need to take care of something here real quick. Okay, well, never mind then. Okay, anyway. Later, Stannis in his chambers at Castle Black working on other letters, and Shireen enters. Stannis begins to apologize for dragging her along on campaign with him, as Castle Black is hardly placed for a child, but Shireen cuts him off. She tells him she is happy to have come and expected to be left at Dragonstone, as Selyse had wanted. Shireen asks her father if he is ashamed of her because of her deformity. Stannis gets up from his table and explains that not long after Shireen was born, a Dornish trade arrived on Dragonstone and, having heard of Shireen's birth, gave a wooden doll as a gift for the newborn girl. Unfortunately, the doll was contaminated with grayscale, and by the time that was discovered, Shireen already contracted the disease. Everyone claimed Shireen would die of it sooner or later, and urged Stannis to send her to the ruins of Valyria to live out her days with the Stone Men before the disease infected the rest of the castle. Stannis says he told them all to go to hell and summoned every healer, apothecary, and maester he could to save Shireen. Stannis says Shireen is his daughter and he would not send her away because she belonged with her family. Shireen, overjoyed at her father's declaration, with tears of joy in her eyes, runs over and gives him a hug, which, after an awkward pause, Stannis returns. Wow. So anyway, at Winterfell, Sansa Stark takes the opportunity to visit her family's underground crypts. Excuse me. She comes to the tomb and statue of Lyanna Stark and finds the feather choke in the rubber Baratheon left there years ago when he visited the castle. Peter Baelish arrives and says he thought he'd find her there. Sansa remarks that her father Eddard Stark never talked about Lyanna, but she would at times find him down in the crypts lighting candles at her tomb. Sansa never knew Lyanna because she died before she was born, but she notes that people say she was beautiful. Littlefinger says that he actually saw Lyanna once years ago, and she was as beautiful as everyone says. Back when he was a boy living with Sansa's mother's family, the old Roman Went of Harrenhal held a massive tournament. Every notable figure of the time came from across Westeros. The Mad King, Crown Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, Robert Baratheon, Lyanna Stark, everyone. Lyanna had already been publicly betrothed to Robert at the time. Baelish remembered how odd he was, a boy from nowhere and with no significant holdings, to see all of these living legends gathered in one place. In the final tilt, Prince Rhaegar rode against Sir Barristan Selmy. Rhaegar won and the entire crowd erupted in cheers. Almost as he dropped dead, silent Rhaegar rode right past his wife Elia Martell, till the victor's crown, many blue winter roses, in Lyanna's lap. Long afterward, Rhaegar met up with Lyanna, sparking off Robert's rebellion which overthrew the Targaryen dynasty. Littlefinger wonders how many thousands died because Rhaegar chose Lyanna, to which Sansa says that he chose her. They kidnapped and raped her. Baelish gives her a wry look and moves on to another part of the crypts. Okay then. Sansa notices that Littlefinger is wearing riding clothes. He explains that he's heading back to King's Landing because Cersei sent a letter requesting his presence and it would be best not to make her suspicious by refusing to come. Sansa will be alone with the Boltons, but he explains his plan to her. Stannis will have to attack the Boltons soon if he is to beat the winter snows, and he bets that Stannis will probably win, because he is one of the best military commanders in all Westeros, and the Boltons will be outnumbered by Stannis, as the other northern houses would be quick to betray their liege lord. Stannis will then make Sansa the new ruler of the North, as the last known surviving Targaryen and in memory of her father Eddard's support for Stannis. So Stannis will happen on the off chance that Stannis gets killed. And Littlefinger explains that marrying Ramsay Bolton now will at least leave Sansa in a position to insinuate herself among the Boltons and help destroy them from within in future plans. Either way, Sansa will be Littlefinger's powerful ally in the north. Littlefinger kisses Sansa on the lips and departs. Ugh. Anyway, and finally, in Meereen, Daenerys Targaryen is looking down on the streets below from her royal apartments in the Great Pyramid. And Sir Barristan Selmy also brings up Rhaegar Targaryen. He says that the city's inhabitants always seem happy from such a distance, but Rhaegar actually liked to leave the Red Keep and mingle with the common people on the streets. Barristan accompanied him often to guard him, and says that Rhaegar liked to sing to people. He was a great singer, so he would find a place on one of the streets, just like any public minstrel, and sing. He liked to see how much money he could make, and everyone enjoyed his singing, so he often made quite a lot. Daenerys is surprised because her brother Viserys only told her that Rhaegar was a great killer. Barristan discussed that Rhaegar was a great warrior but never enjoyed killing. He was a gentle man who enjoyed singing. Just what they did with all the money. Barristan says they did all sorts of things. Sometimes he just gave it to the next minstrel on the road. Once Rhaegar gave it all to an orphanage in the slums of Flea Bottom. One time spent it to get horribly drunk. Darna Harris then comes to say that the day's supplicants are waiting in the throne room, chief among them Histar Zola Rock. Aware of his dislike of politics, Daenerys asks if Barristan wants to attend her in the throne room. After being assured that Daario has her back, she gives him the day off, cheerfully telling him to make some music in the city below. Histar can beseech Daenerys to reopen the fighting pits of Meereen, because today is the traditional beginning of the fighting season. Daenerys again refuses. Histar rashly argues that the fighting pits provide a great spectacle that has always been enjoyed by both slave masters and slaves, and is one of the few things that could bring the city together. Bringing about this major tradition will not instantly solve all of her problems, he concedes, but it would be a start amending together her subjects. Yeah, get back here. As he speaks, the Sons of the Harpy are already mounting a series of large-scale attacks in the streets, and Rhaenyra's prostitute helps them distract and kill some of the Second Sons. And when a patrol of Unsullied arrives, she feigns fear and directs them into a trap by pointing that the Sons of the Harpy ran into a narrow alleyway. The Unsullied give chase, only to be surrounded by a much larger number of the Sons of the Harpy. Brutal fighting rages throughout the streets of Meereen. Greyjoy is among the ambushed and sullied. He kills many of the attackers, loses his helmet, is slashed in the leg, and is stabbed in the side. Grey Worm pulls the dagger out of his own chest, stabs the foe in the throat with it, and keeps fighting. Those wounds slow him considerably. Most of the sons of the Harpy are dead, but they are outnumbered. But they outnumber the Unsullied so much to begin with that only Grey Worm is left. Just then, Sir Barristan arrives to seize Grey Worm from certain death by drawing the attention of the remaining rebels. He takes on 8 sons of the Harpy, killing 7 of them. Then the 8th stabs him in the belly. He falls to his knees, but before the attacker can cut his throat, Grey Worm thrusts his spear into his back, killing him. Grey Worm staggers over to the unconscious Barristan before collapsing from his wounds. Oh no. So anyway, let's take a look at some behind-the-scenes notes from this episode. The episode title is a reference to the Sons of the Harpy, an underground resistance movement opposed to Daenerys Targaryen's rule over Meereen and seeking to restore the Great Masters. The Harpy is a heraldic symbol of the slave masters in Slaver's Bay. Originally a symbol of the old Giscari Empire, which originally colonized the region thousands of years ago. Dorne now appears as a location that had been credits for the first time. It didn't when Dorne was first seen 2 episodes ago, but that was simply due to time constraints. Not all of the diverse locations of that episode could fit in the opening credits. Due to the way the title sequence has to be arranged, starting at King's Landing, then moving north and then across the Narrow Sea, it is the only Westerosi location to appear after wherever Daenerys is. Curiously, while the area is used to represent the Vale of Arryn as a whole because it is the capital of the Vale, Dorne is simply labeled Dorne instead of its capital, Sunspear. Since most of the action in Dorne is set in the Water Gardens, not Sunspear itself, it's possible that this was an attempt to lessen the confusion for viewers, even though the Water Gardens aren't far from Sunspear. In the Vale, most of the action was still set at the Eyrie. Arya Stark, Brienne of Tarth, and House Greyjoy do not appear in this episode. Sansa and Littlefinger appear at Winterfell, but the Boltons remain off-screen, though they are discussed. This episode marks the first on-screen introduction of the Sand Snakes, Oberyn Martell's daughters. They were first mentioned as the Sand Snakes 2 episodes ago by Ellaria to Doran, and Oberyn first mentioned that he had 8 daughters in Season 4's first of his name. They are called the Sand Snakes because Sand is a special bastard surname used in Dorne, and snakes for their father's nickname, the Red Viper. Several of them are the daughters of other women Oberyn encountered in his life, though the younger ones are by Ellaria. Even so, because Ellaria Sand herself was a bastard, Oberyn cannot marry her. It would be marrying beneath his situation. Instead, he simply lived with Ellaria as his paramour, formal mistress, and treated her as wife in all but name. The manuscript that George R. R. Martin originally wrote for the 4th novel grew so long that he had to split it into 2 novels, whose events occur simultaneously. The 4th novel, A Feast for Crows, focuses on events within the 7 kingdoms themselves, particularly Cersei, Margaery, and the political situation at King's Landing. The 5th novel, A Dance with Dragons, that backs up and covers all of the events set in the same time period, but occurring outside of the 7 kingdoms proper. Jon Snow stands Baratheon at the Wall, and the Boltons in the north, Daenerys and Meereen, also Arya and Tyrion in the Free Cities. I want to point out that there are a few narrative parallels between events in different regions that are not immediately obvious as a result, i.e., he meant to intercut Cersei chapters of King's Landing with Daenerys chapters in Meereen, contrasting each queen is challenged to hold her world together. The TV series undercut this material, however, as it was originally conceived. Therefore, in this episode, the rise of radical movements in both regions are presented in parallel. The Faith Militant at King's Landing and the Sons of the Harpy in Meereen. The Iron Bank of Braavos has called in 1/10 of the Crown's debts. As Davos predicted last season in The Laws of Gods and Men, the bank wouldn't have as much faith in Lannisters compared to Stannis after Tywin was dead, so they're starting to put pressure on them. When Arya Stark first came to King's Landing and Lord Snow, the Crown was already 6 million gold dragons in debt. Littlefinger said that half of it was owed to Tywin Lannister. The novel specified that the rest of the debt, 2 million, was owed to the Iron Bank. The Tyrells and several Tyroshi trading cartels together, and about 1 million to the Faith of the Seven. though the fact that they also owed money to the faith seems to have been omitted from the TV series. When Tyrion and Bronn found out about the debt in Season 3's Walk of Punishment, Bronn pointed out that now Tywin's grandson is Lannister's puppet at Iron Throne. The Lancers can't pay themselves back the $3 million Tywin lent to Robert. Mr. reveals in this episode that they can only physically pay back half of the tenth of the debt they owe the Iron Bank. They physically possess 1/20th of the money they owe the Iron Bank, which out of $2 million would be 100,000. However, Tywin revealed to Cersei in Season 4's first of his name that wartime spending drastically increased already significant debts to the Iron Bank to tremendous levels. Quite probably more than the $2 million they owed in the novels. So proportionally, that 20th of the debt they physically possess is probably larger. It's probably also larger. Mace also mentions before being cut off that rebuilding the royal fleet after the Battle of Blackwater significantly added to their debts. This is not to a larger subplot in the novels. Cersei grows increasingly annoyed that without the royal fleet, the Lancers have to rely on the Red Wine fleet under the command of Tyrells. As Red Wine are Tyrell Bannerman, Olenna herself was born Olenna Redwine. Therefore, despite the fact that they're already barely able to placate the Iron Bank about their massive debts, Cersei orders a new royal fleet to be constructed, a huge expenditure, made a kingdom bigger in cost, done primarily because she's paranoid about being too reliant on the Tyrells. There may be too many Kingsguard in this episode. There are supposed to be 7 Kingsguard at any one time. Jaime is the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and he is in Dorne, and Cersei says she is sending Sir Mayor trying to escort Mace Tyrell to Braavos. Previously, when Marcel was sent away to Dorne by boat in Season 2's The Old Gods and the New, Kingsguard was sitting on the boat next to her. In the novels, it was her heiress Oakhart. Yet, when Tommen tries to visit the High Sparrow, there are 5 Kingsguard with him. These 5 plus Jaime, Meryn, and Aerys make 8, not 7. There are 3 possibilities. First, one of those 5 must be Meryn, and he just hasn't left for Braavos yet. Unlikely, as he's usually the point man speaking for the other Kingsguard. Instead, another Kingsguard is introduced who talks to Tommen. Second, in the TV version, Sir Aerys might have simply returned to King's Landing after he finished escorting Marcella, even though within the narrative he stayed with Marcel to guard a princess of the royal blood. Third, the number of Kingsguard visible on screen might simply be an accident. This will not be the first time such an accident happened in the TV series. As in the Season 1 finale, Fire and Blood, 9 Kingsguard were visible on screen when Joffrey tortures Marillion, even though Jaime wasn't present and Barristan had just been fired, meaning that there shouldn't have been more than 5 at the time. Given that Aerys has not subsequently seen at all in Dorne this season, it seems in the TV series he simply returned to King's Landing immediately after giving Marcel to Dorne, unless there are not too many Kingsguard in this episode. So Aerys should not return to King's Landing. Since Marcel is a royalty, he, or any other member of the Kingsguard, should have stayed with her for her protection. Sir Barristan Selmy does not die in the novels. In fact, lives to become a POV narrator of his own chapters by the end of the 5th novel, at least the beginning in the upcoming 6th novel. He is later participated in a large battle, at the beginning of the 6th novel, and it is unclear if he will survive. So Barristan dying in this episode might be a very loose condensation of the novels. In the Season 5 Blu-ray commentary, it said there was a lot of discussion about whether to kill off Barristan like this, but decided to kill him off so Daenerys would feel increasingly isolated as the season went on. Barristan's final fight scene and death were originally intended to be in episode 6, but as the season was reshuffled, it was moved here to the 4th episode. Actor Jacob Anderson, who plays Grey Worm, in the same interview with Huffington Post, revealed that a lot of thought went into Grey Worm's reaction of pain/anger when he was wounded in the fight. This was an unusual reaction for Grey Worm, because it had been emphasized that the Unsullied had been brutally trained to ignore pain and fear. In the novels, they are even given a special tonic to drink, which over many years of continued usage physically dulls their sense of pain. In the next episode, when Grey Worm wakes, he tells Missandei that he is ashamed because he was afraid, not of pain or death, but when he was wounded, he was frightened by the thought that he would never see her again. Therefore, his reaction wasn't so much out of physical pain, but frustration/fear. The Unsullied are trained to be essentially mindless automatons who place such little value on their own lives as if, on a whim, their master orders them to fall on their sword, they will do it without hesitation. Since Grey Worm was freed, however, he is journeying towards a sense of personhood and self-value. He felt no fear when he had nothing to lose. But now that he has things that he cares about, for the first time he's experiencing the associated fear of losing them. Anderson saw this as part of Grey Worm's overall character arc and growth, saying, quote, "I've discussed with David Benioff and Dan Weiss a few times, like how far I've gone with it each season, because I guess it's like as Grey Worm is going along, he's becoming more and more human. So I thought about that when he got stabbed, and yeah, there was discussion on the day of that, whether I should respond to that, a kind of warrior that's not afraid of death," end quote. The previous High Septon has been replaced by the so-called High Sparrow as the new High Septon due to Cersei's machinations. A quirk of the office is that when someone becomes High Septon, they give up their entire name. It's forbidden to refer to them by it, which does make people confused in the universe when they try to discuss different High Septons. Everyone tends to still refer to the new High Septon, the third TV series, by his nickname, the High Sparrow. The conversation between Cersei and the High Sparrow in the novel goes the other way around. The High Sparrow is the one who brings up the subject of restoring the faith militant. He tells Cersei about how much the small folk and members of the faith have suffered during the war. She has no sympathy for the rape victims, even internally muses that half of the Septas must be yearning to be raped. Finally, she reaches agreement with High Sparrow. Kingmaker's laws disbanding the faith militant will be cancelled by royal decree. In return, the High Septon will acknowledge Tommen as king and forgive the crown's debts to the faith, nearly 1 million gold dragons. In the TV version, apparently Cersei accurately surmised that the attacks on the clergy and the chaos of war is something that the High Sparrow would be worried about. She doesn't care. She brings up to manipulate him, hoping to gain new allies in the faith. In the novels, the Sparrow strong-armed the faith's hierarchy to make the High Sparrow the new High Septon. Cersei executed the current one, and an election was being held. It was actually the High Sparrow who asked to reform the faith militant, in exchange for forgiving massive loans the crown had made from the faith. Cersei's decision to attempt such a brazen request was still seen as ridiculous, but the TV writers felt it would have taken too long to explain this on screen. Therefore, as they explained in the Season 5 Blu-ray release, they changed to have Cersei come up with the idea to reform the faith militant, hoping that in return the Sparrow/faith militant would be loyal to her as a strong new ally. This goes down all their subplots, they felt, while still keeping the main thematic point that the recreation of the faith militant was Cersei's fault, and ultimately she was complicit in her own downfall across the season as a result. Actor Eugene Simon, who plays Lancel, explained that after joining the Sparrows, Lancel Lannister stopped trying to maintain a refined and wealthy appearance, instead switching to homespun cloth robes of the other penitents, and he's also barefoot like them. Because Lancel used to have long, attractive hair, he now simply cuts it short without styling it, i.e., if he previously wore his hair short but neatly cropped, he would switch to wearing it long and unkempt to show that Lancel doesn't care about his appearance anymore. But Lancel already had long hair, so he did the other way around. Similarly, Simon explained they got the idea to show how little Lancel cares about his physical appearance. He intentionally grew out his own fingernails for 3 months without cutting them. When Lancel is having the silver-plated star carved in his forehead, the character grips the wooden arm of his chair in pain so hard that his nails break. For this shot, Simon weakened the long nails on his right hand by discreetly cutting vertical lines into them to make them break when he gripped the handle very hard. Simon's fingernails are actually breaking and bleeding on camera with no props. As he said, quote, "I put my hand on the side of the wood, I squeezed, and my nails broke, and we got the shot. It's used in the footage, so my action was being broken. It was so worth it," end quote. Simon said that a fortunate side effect of this happened in the preceding episode. When the Sparrows burst into the brothel, Lancel dragged Zeld High Septon out onto the street naked. He accidentally ended up potentially gripping him so hard that he cut his long nails. The long nails cut the other actor deep enough to draw blood. After the show was done, he looked down at his hands and at the other actor's bloody ribs, and realized he had blood under his nails. In the novels, The Faithless Seven only allows marriages between one man and one woman, and is against homosexual relationships, be they a relationship between two men or a relationship between two women. In the show, fornication, buggery, blasphemy is prohibited in the seven-pointed star. All charges that Sir Loras Tyrell is arrested and successfully prosecuted on. Burial also states that Loras has broken the laws of gods and men when he was arrested. During the second raid of Littlefinger's brothel by the Sparrows, a male prostitute and his male client are verbally and physically assaulted by a group of Sparrows for their homosexuality. According to Finn Jones, who plays Loras Tyrell, Sparrows' motives weren't religious at all, but using religion as a guise for a power grab. Finn Jones said about the Sparrows in an interview that quote, its paupers fit up with the elitist rule, end quote. Emphasis is backed up by the fact that Littlefinger's brothel is an upscale brothel, so presumably both the male prostitute and male client are upscale as well. It's heavily implied that the male client and male prostitute assaulted by the Sparrows during the second raid of Littlefinger's brothel were both either castrated or had their penis and testicles removed. Male same-sex sexual intercourse at King's Landing becomes de facto illegal in this episode. Josephine Gillen, who plays the prostitute Marae, explained in an interview after season 5 that for the scene when the Faith Militant storms Littlefinger's brothel and drag her out of the building, it was originally planned that they would punch Marie in the face so hard, plus breaking Marie's nose or jaw, that Gillen was going to need to have a large amount of fake blood continuing to pour out of her mouth as she is dragged away. The production team later decided, however, that seeing a woman beaten up like this was too dark and violent for the needs of the scene, just had her dragged away by her hair. As explained in the Blu-ray commentary, the fact that Thomas Chambers have all the windows shuttered and the doors closed until Marjorie enters, intended to convey that he is being protected, but so caged like a bird and isolated from what is really going on. The TV series did not explain this in detail at the time, but Joffrey's flippant decision to have Eddard Stark beheaded wasn't just shocking due to his psychopathic violence and political stupidity. In the novels, many rose outright that Joffrey had Eddard executed where he stood, on the very steps of the great sept of Baelor, defying holy ground. Even the High Septon at the time, a fat man politically bribed off as a Lannister puppet, expresses outrage at them for beheaded Eddard at the Great Sept. In contrast, in this episode, when Joffrey's brother Tommen urged to have the Kingsguard kill the man blocking his path, he is shocked. It simply points out that this would violate holy ground. This is the first mention of Old Town in the TV series. Jaime says the trade ship they were on is heading there. Old Town is actually the second largest city in Westeros, nearly as large as King's Landing, and thousands of years older. It is ruled by House Hightower. Alyri Tyrell, wife of Mace and mother of Loras and Marjorie, was born Alyri Hightower. In the beginning of the fourth novel, after finding Tywin's body, Jaime thinks that in retrospect, had he known Tyrion's intention, he would have stopped him from harming their father by killing him. Other than that, in the novels, he never comments aloud or thinks about telling Tyrion prospectively for killing their father. It isn't clear if Jaime actually means what he says in this episode. At the same time, he denies that he had any involvement in freeing Tyrion, who actually forced Varys to help free him. Tyrion swore vengeance on his own family, including Jaime in the novels. Edward revealed what really happened to Tysha. In his POV narration chapters, he repeatedly remarks aloud that he intends to kill Jaime, but near the end of the fifth novel, it is implied he starts changing his mind. Though, of course, all mention of Tysha was removed when Tyrion killed Tywin. The novels have not given any significant backstory for Bronn, though soldiers do not travel long distances searching for employment. In the TV series, Bronn previously said in Season 1 that he had been north of the Wall, and in this episode, he remarks he has been to Dorne before, meaning he has been to the northern and southern extremes of Westeros. Jaime catching Stark with his metal right hand might have been a slight nod to a separate moment in the novels. Jaime doesn't go to Dorne, but to the Riverlands, to manage the Freys as they besiege the Tullys at River Run. At one point, Jaime punches out an obstinate Frey with his gold hand, severely injuring him, discovering that the metal hand makes a fairly useful melee weapon. The Dorne speech that Jaime and Bronn was Lando was filmed at Port Stewart, Northern Ireland. Staging a fight scene on a sandy beach presents specific continuity difficulties. After each take, the whole area had to be painstakingly raked and the proper continuity footprints replaced. The moment of the fight where Jamie sees how tall his opponent is and grimaces is a deliberate reference to a similar moment in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. George R. R. Martin sent in a note on the script for the fight scene pointing out that Jamie should be a worse fighter due to his lack of a right hand. Not really having enough time to train, had to fight with his left hand effectively. The scene was rewritten and re-choreographed as a result. As explained in the Blu-ray commentary, the Dorn subplot was actually a relatively late addition to Season 5. Originally, the showrunners didn't intend for any scenes from Dorn to appear at all, due to the fact that no previously established major characters appear in it. Brian Cockman, however, then got the idea that if they changed it to send established characters Jamie and Braun, that would make it possible to depict the Dorn subplot on screen. There was a character building dialogue with the scene with the Sand Snakes, which was cut for time from finished episodes in Season 5. Some early production photos were released of scenes which never aired, which was supposed to take place when the Sand Snakes first appear. The promotional image indicates a longer introduction for Mary and Tyene was indeed apparently filmed, as they had heated conversation with each other before Laurie arrived for the campsite. In the finished aired versions of the 2 episodes, the Sand Snakes have appeared in by this point, including this one, episodes 4 and 6. And Mary and Tyene ultimately had minimal speaking lines. No deleted scenes containing no footage of Sand Snakes were ultimately released in the Season 5 Blu-ray set either. It is possible that dialogue from these unaired scenes was simply reshuffled to another conversation that the Sand Snakes have later in Season 5. So the scenes are no longer simply omitted, but in fact redundant with the final version. The scorpions crawling the head of the Potosi merchant captain, the Sand Snakes buried neck deep in the sand, are not CGI creations, but in fact live scorpions that had to be brought up by a special handler. The Making of Game of Thrones.com production blog even included a short video in which writers made out Mice take turns nervously holding one of the scorpions. The dusty feather Sansa Stark finds on the tomb of Aunt Lyanna was actually left there by King Robert Baratheon in the very first episode of Season 1, Winter is Coming. The idea the TV writers had was that when Robert was courting Lyanna, he'd bring her little tokens like feathers from tropical birds, which they don't have in the north. So when he visited her tomb, he left one there for her. No one came into the tombs often, particularly after the castle was burned out, so logically, it simply stayed there for 4 years. From the in-episode guide, David Benioff said, quote, "The last time we saw the statue of Lyanna was in the first episode. King Robert Baratheon laid this exotic tropical bird feather in her hand. As we were preparing the scenes with Sansa, we thought, that feather's probably still there. People haven't been going down there and cleaning up much. Clearly, after Ramsay destroyed Winterfell, there hasn't been a janitorial crew going down and vacuuming," end quote. D.B. Weiss said, quote, "We thought it would be kind of a great thing to have Sansa wondering about it. Hopefully viewers wonder, where did I see that before? And then remember that in the first episode of the show, this is something that Robert left to remember the woman he loved," end quote. No mention was made in novels that Littlefinger was present at the great tournament of Harrenhal, though he quite probably was, given that he was living with the Tullys at the time, and as he said, everyone was there. It was one of the largest tournaments in living memory. King Robert said that Rhaegar kidnapped and raped Lyanna Stark, which sparked up Robert's rebellion. Bran Stark previously said that this is what happened, and Sansa Stark in this episode reiterates it. Though they weren't alive at the time, it could only rely on what their parents told them. In Season 4, Oberyn Martell remarked to Tyrion that Rhaegar ran off with Lyanna, forsaking his own sister Elia Martell. It is notable that he doesn't seem to accuse Rhaegar of rape. Littlefinger explains to Sansa only the facts that he and an entire massive crowd saw with their own eyes. Rhaegar rode past his own wife and handed a laurel of flowers to Lyanna. How such were the rules of Harrenhal at the beginning of the War of the Five Kings. In the opening moves of the conflict, the Lannisters seized the castle, and their only remaining direct heir, old Lady Shalowent, died. Back in early season 1, Catelyn spoke of Lady Went as ruling Harrenhal. Catelyn Tully's mother herself was a Went, though of unspecified relationship to the rest of the family. So Littlefinger's talking about the great tournament the Wents held. They are actually Sansa's maternal grandmother's family. In the novels, House Went is currently held to be extinct, which is why the lands were given to Littlefinger, though in truth, Catelyn and her sister Lysa and her brother Edmure were all half Went, meaning that all of them and their children like Sansa have some claim to Harrenhal. Littlefinger tells Sansa he thinks Stannis will defeat the Boltons because he's one of the best military commanders of Westeros, and he has a larger army. The latter point contradicts both the books and TV series. The novels stress that Stannis initially outnumbered around 5-1, given how small his remaining army he took to the wall was. Also in the TV version, since the season 5 premiere, Stannis himself has been complaining that he doesn't have enough men to take Winterfell, to the point that he initially tried to force the wildlings to fight for him. This could easily be reconciled, however, if what Littlefinger means is that he assumes the rest of the North will rise up to join Stannis' initial army. A division of the armies were destroyed at the Red Wedding, but their few remaining forces banded together can greatly aid Stannis. Indeed, in the preceding episode, Roose himself warned Ramsay that if all the other northern houses rebel against him at once, i.e. join Stannis, they don't have enough men to fight them all. Stannis mentions that Stillmen were severely affected by the Grayscale Plague are pushed out to live in the fringes of the old civilization, in the ruins of old Valyria. In the novels, a large area around the ruins of Crowain, on the river north of Volantis, is essentially used as a leper colony for people suffering from grayscale. There are also vague rumors of men living in the shattered remains of the Valyrian Peninsula, ruins of Oros, Tyria, and old Valyria itself, who might similarly be Stillmen pushed to live on the abandoned fringes of civilization, but these rumors are unconfirmed in the novels. The novels never specifically explain how Shireen got grayscale. It's just common in cold, damp climates, like the drive to coastal castles she grew up in. The story Stannis relates in this episode possibly could have happened, though, and Stannis' actions were entirely in keeping with his character. His iron will and will break before he gives up, being on the battlefield or doing everything he can to save his daughter's life. In the novels, when Stannis leaves Castle Black, he explicitly orders the men he leaves behind that if he dies fighting the Boltons, he expects them to keep fighting to put Shireen on the Iron Throne. Aww. Anyway, Samuel Tarly presents Jon Snow with some paperwork, requests for recruits from obscure minor houses with a handful of men to send them. Of the ones he lists, only House Ashford and House Smallwood are actually from the novels, while the other three were invented by the TV series: House Caulfield, House Mason, and House Wibberley. A joke about this is made in the episode itself, and Jon remarks that he's never even heard of these people. That being said, there are several hundred minor houses in Westeros, so both the 100 some major houses, and Martin intentionally never made a definite list of them all, so no characters can be invented the story requires. House Caulfield is apparently referenced to one of the producers on the TV series, Bernadette Caulfield, reversed by the fact that Samuel specifically his letters being sent to Lady Caulfield. Certainly, House Wibberley is a reference to Cormac and Marianne Wibberley, a married team of scriptwriters who were also friends of the TV show writers. House Mason is a reference to Craig Mason, a friend of showrunners David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, who gave them advice upon seeing the pilot and led them to refilm it. Likewise, the character Boak, who does not exist in the novels, is probably a reference to Robert Boak, one of the filming location managers of the show. Interesting. So overall, I think this episode is pretty interesting, but yeah, the Sons of the Harpies, I do not like them at all, and I don't like what all the manipulation that Cersei's been doing with High Spirit and the Faith Militant and so on and so forth. So so overall, I give Sons of the Harpy 4 Iron Thrones out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in tomorrow as we take the next episode, Kill the Boy. So, until then, remember everyone, winter is coming.